Good evening, everyone. My name is Commissioner Michael Schenkel, and I'm the chair of ANC 2C. I'd like to welcome you to our March 14th, 2023 meeting this evening. We are currently waiting for our other commissioners to join. But in the meantime, I would like to introduce Commissioner Rowe from 2C04.
Good evening.
Thank you, Commissioner, who's with us this evening. I apologize for us starting a little late this evening. We have two of four commissioners present tonight. We do not have a quorum yet. What I would like to do, Commissioner Lee is joining us any minute. He's been delayed at home, but I would like to begin by moving forward into our community section. We have a special guest with us this evening. We have Councilmember Brooke Pinto, who's with us. And I would like to turn the floor over to Councilmember Pinto.
Great. Well, thank you so much, Chair Schenkel and Commissioner Rowe. Nice to see you. And thank you for having me tonight. I'm so pleased to be here with you, and also want to note Pablo from my team is here as well, and I know he's been enjoying working with you all on many different challenges. I also want to thank many of you for coming to our office hours at TISM last week. It was really great to see folks in person and talk through together about a lot of the challenges that we're seeing downtown, a lot of the opportunities for collaboration between government and business and our residents. And it was really nice to have that chance to chat with you all. So I thought tonight I could share some updates on what we're focused on, what I'm focused on in our office and council, and then want to make sure, most importantly, we have time for any questions or comments that folks may have. So we have really hit the ground running this year, introducing new legislation on a number of topics. We introduced a bill to reduce vehicular noise, increase public restroom access, streamline the healthcare processes so that healthcare decisions can be made between patients and their doctors, replace all the lead pipes in our city, and expanding access to electric bikes. And many of you know that I have now taken on the role as the chairwoman of the Judiciary and Public Safety Committee. And I hear every day from Ward 2 residents and residents in all of our 8 wards that public safety is on the top of people's minds and is the #1 concern right now. And it is my top priority for this office and for the committee and for the council. Addressing crime and violence and making our city safer is what we are focused on every single day, and what we're going to continue to try to see major improvements on throughout the year. As the chairwoman of this committee, I'm focused on holding our agencies accountable and ensuring that they have the resources that they need to meet the public safety needs of our city, and to ensure that the investments that we've made are being implemented responsibly and effectively, and that our agencies that are part of our public safety toolkit are working together to solve these great challenges that we're seeing in our city right now. One of my priorities is around addressing the epidemic of gun violence that we see in our city. I held a 3-day public roundtable a few weeks ago to bring the community, government agencies, other national experts together to address this crisis. I'm also focused on ameliorating domestic violence and hate crimes, as well as youth interventions and supports, and better supporting our returning citizen population and ensuring that they have the necessary resources not to recidivate, particularly in an environment that we are not a state yet. And so many people serving long sentences for felonies are serving those sentences all across the country. But our DC jail is where we have residents who are serving sentences that might be 30 days or 8 months or 2 years. And so they will all return to our community, and ensuring that our programming is effective there is a really important part of our public safety response to drive down recidivism. And so we don't see the rearrest data that we see far too often in our city. I'm also fighting this budget season to getting our police and our mental health professionals more staffing, which is an issue that I hear about every day from 2C residents. On the topic of public safety, I wanted to just give a brief update on where we are with the revised criminal code, because I know this has been in the news a lot lately and maybe on people's minds. Essentially, as you all know, the council passed a revision and really an update to our criminal code that was written in 1901, and Congress has disapproved our ability to do so. There were some changes with the bill that I was planning on making this spring, but now, because the whole kind of project was undermined by Congress in this way, we're now at square zero again. I will say, from my perspective in chairing this committee, while it is extremely frustrating that Congress has stepped in this way to disallow us from legislating on behalf of DC residents and really undermining our home rule, I still do believe that modernizing our criminal code is an important endeavor. We don't have a standalone offense for assault, for example. Our prosecutors and judges tell us all the time how difficult it is to bring these cases because elements of what constitutes a crime is not clearly laid out. And so updating this code is really important, and I continue to believe it's really important. But I also have a lot of major priorities for the committee to see improvements in public safety now. And I don't want to let the kind of hoopla, for lack of a better term, and the politicization of this issue undermine those efforts. And so I am kind of pushing pause on the criminal code update piece of our public safety response and trying to have a more comprehensive top to bottom review of all of our public safety apparatuses and all of our agencies within the apparatus, and moving forward legislation that we will see improvements in public safety in the immediate. So I just wanted to share that with you all as kind of where I stand on that at the moment, but certainly we'll look in the future to seeing some updated some updates that we need to see for a functional criminal code. It just may not be until later this year or the following. In addition to our public safety goals, we're working on a number of other priorities to address homelessness, support our small businesses, and help downtown recover from the pandemic. Our downtown is the economic engine of our city, and we rely on having a strong downtown to have a strong DC. And one of the things that we've learned from the pandemic is that we need a resilient neighborhood to withstand different challenges that we may see. And in downtown, because we were so overly reliant on an office market environment, when people stopped coming to the office, it really affected our transportation system, our small businesses, our restaurants, and you all, the residents who live downtown, were left bearing a lot of the brunt of that. And so I'm trying to work primarily through our tax code on thinking about other ways to revitalize and re-envision downtown. I have a bill called the Recovery Act that I'm going to be reintroducing in a couple of days with some improvements thanks to feedback that we've heard from residents and your neighbors, to really do a couple things. It incentivizes conversions of office buildings to other uses. That could be residential uses, affordability inclusions, hotels, retail, green space, or other small businesses. And so hopefully that incentive through our tax code can make more productive use of these vacant office buildings. It also provides a grant system for businesses to locate brick and mortar downtown, with a prioritization for women and minority-owned businesses, as well as for grocery stores, urgent care centers, and child care centers, which I've continued to hear are major needs. And so I want to thank many of you for participating with us throughout this process. And it is an iterative process as we introduce the bill. I look forward to hearing from more of you on how we can strengthen it and make it even better. to meet the needs of downtown. The other piece that we are including in there is the provision for what we're calling bid safety specialists, which are going to be 20 additional eyes on the ground for the downtown business improvement district to manage, to have additional support for some of our public safety challenges. MPD has been working hard on a lot of issues downtown, but we have major staffing concerns. And as we try to get their MPD's force back up, we need to think creatively about hiring for other types of roles, particularly, for instance, that may not be violent, but that may need additional eyes on the ground to prevent crime, and to help connect folks to appropriate agencies that may be able to help them. And so I'm hopeful that this partnership with the BID, and I want to thank them so much for their partnership in this effort, will be a much needed improvement to the situation downtown and in Chinatown that we're seeing. I recently sent my budget request letter to Mayor Bowser on behalf of Ward 2 residents. I'll be meeting with her tomorrow to talk about some of those as well. And I'm really hoping that we can get a lot of those priorities funded, and want to thank your commissioners in particular, and many residents here for writing to us and letting us know what your priorities are, so we can champion those on behalf of Ward 2. So, for example, I asked for funding for the Recovery Act that I just talked about, so we can really kickstart the recovery downtown in the central business district that we really need to see. I've asked for more investments in our Metropolitan Police Department to recruit, hire, and train additional police officers. I've asked for the return of a dedicated MPD unit to Chinatown. This was something that we previously had 20 or 30 years ago in Chinatown, and I think it's really important that we rebuild that unit back up. That's an expansion of school-based violence interruption initiatives, for more funding to respond to the increased prevalence and severity of domestic violence that we continue to see, as well as a violence prevention and response team coordinator to help us address our response to anti-LGBTQIA+ hate crimes that are on the rise in the city right now, and making sure that our response to those crimes is coordinated and getting victims the services they need, and trying to drive those instances down. I've asked for additional funding to enhance resources around the Pat Handy shelter. What's clear to me as I talk to folks is that we need more resources for residents who live in the shelter, and also additional services for trash and security around the shelter. I've asked for an acquisition, and this is something I've been working with the mayor on for many years now, is the need to acquire standalone small hotels to use to house some of our neighbors who are experiencing homelessness. And I think this is really important, both as we see a rise in encampments around our ward and our city, but also for folks who might not be ready to live independently yet. And as they get additional resources and wraparound supports that they need, I think a hotel model will be the best avenue for folks to live in a non-congregate care setting, but get the services they need. And this only works with full-time 24/7 support and services in addition to that. I've asked for more salaries and support for outreach workers, and an investment in public housing repairs at our DC Housing Authority. Many other requests for small businesses, for Chinatown and Gallery Place in particular, to provide dedicated cleaning and maintenance by the downtown BID, to support our businesses during the K Street Transitway construction project, additional funding for Thompson Elementary School. We continue to see and hear concerns from families around the playground and the need for improved hallway lighting. So we're going to try to secure that. And lastly, I'll share the investments we asked for ending senior hunger. To try to end senior hunger by funding the No Senior Hungry Omnibus Amendment Act. Establish a Ward 2 senior center. We are the only ward in the city that does not have a standalone senior center. And so I think it's really important that it's centrally located and easily accessible via transportation. And that's something we're going to try to fight for this year. We funded a study last year to determine the best locations for it. And now this year it's time to fund the center itself, as well as an activation of Farragut Park, particularly as we see construction with the K Street Transitway and other locations downtown. We need to make sure that Farragut Park has extended sidewalks and an activation of that space for everybody to enjoy. So the next step in the budget process is Mayor Bowser will send her proposed budget to the council a week from tomorrow. So next Wednesday, March 22nd, and then we'll dive into it. We will have budget hearings on all of the pieces of the budget that touch agencies that the Judiciary and Public Safety Committee has oversight over. I'll attend a number of those other hearings with other committees that I either serve on or that have projects that are of importance to Ward 2 residents. And then the committee will pass our budget through the committee process, and it will go to the full council for a vote. And this should all be wrapped up by mid-May. And so I urge folks to get involved in the process, sign up to testify at our hearings. If I can ask Pablo to put that hearing schedule in the chat, we'd love to hear from you, and it would be really helpful to have more Ward 2 voices as part of this, because our at-large colleagues and other colleagues need to hear from you as well about what you'd like to see in your community. And we've used the last month or two as well for performance oversight of all of these agencies to really push folks on providing better services, whether that was DPW to make sure trash pickup is consistent and timely, to MPD to make sure that response time is improved and we can really focus on reducing crime that we continue to see. So we have been focused on all those efforts, and I will stop there and answer any questions or hear any concerns or ideas that folks may have. But thanks again for having me.
Thank you so much, Councilmember Pinto. We appreciate you being here this evening and talking with us and sharing all these great points. As commissioners, do commissioners have a question? Was that Becky previously?
Yeah, I have a question.
Okay, got it. Go, Commissioner Strauss.
Yeah. So what specifically can be done for construction mitigation?
In terms of the K Street Transitway project?
Yeah.
So it's a great question. I think there are a couple avenues that we can go. One of the most concrete asks from the Golden Triangle bid was about support for retail. And my view on this is that it is better to provide more discretion to our bids on how they utilize that funding, because some retail may say, hey, we have no foot traffic, and so we are losing all of our revenue, and so we need a little support paying our rent this month. But others may say, we want to have a sidewalk activation and a pop-up to let folks know that we're still open during this construction. And so we need help with that activation. And so my goal is to get this funding directly to the Golden Triangle bid.
I see.
So that they can have a little discretion in the use of those dollars.
That makes sense. And on the senior center, the old Balance gym that I think DHS bought, did you guys consider that site for a senior center?
It's a great idea, and I know you raised this at our check-in, and thank you so much. The study is still ongoing, so it's something that we can make sure is part of their consideration. A site has not been selected yet for that location, so it's certainly not too late. So I'll take a note of that to make sure that that's on their radar.
And is this something that would be done through DHS, or is it a separate process? Like if it were to become a senior center instead of a shelter, is that something that could be, is there like a process for making that happen?
So it depends on which agency it's going to. I think because it's a DHS asset, it could probably be done via a MOU with an agency that might operate it. And that could be a transfer of the ownership of the building itself, or it may just be leased out. I did reference this as a possible site for the senior center or for LGBTQ housing. on my tour last week with DHS of Pat Handy Shelter and the swing space of Pat Handy. So it's on their radar, but I think I'll make sure, as I said, to flag those ideas to the group who was doing the study on location as well. But that's how I think the kind of avenues would go for transferring that type of use if that is deemed to be the best site.
And my last question, when is work going to begin on the K Street Transitway now?
I don't have that timeline in front of me. I think it was set, I don't want to misspeak. I thought it was set to begin later this year, like late fall of 2023, but I can follow up and get back to you on the expected timeline.
Great.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Kraus. Commissioner Rowe, Commissioner Lee, do you have questions?
I do not, but thank you, Council Member, for speaking with us and giving us so much great information on the priorities that you're going to be focusing on this year. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner, and thank you so much for coming to our office hours last week.
It was fun. Yeah. Thank you. It was good tea too.
Great tea.
Was that the office hours at Teaism last week? Right, good. I wish I'd gone to that. It's just right across from where I live. I'll try to make it to the next one. I have a question for you. I was, I think all last week and the week before, I kind of watched this slow-moving train wreck of the criminal law reform bill as it made its way up to Congress and then through the Senate and then to the president's desk and seeing it vetoed. I think it did set back efforts at self-government somewhat because it kind of painted the city in a negative light on a national stage. My question, all through the debate leading up to the president deciding not to, deciding not to support the efforts of the city, we kept hearing that 95% of people agree on. Sorry, everyone agrees on 95% of the bill, and so is it possible that we simply get past the 95% that everyone agrees on, that the mayor agrees on, that the chief of police agrees on, that the city council agrees on, and work on the other 5% at a later date, or make that an ongoing effort? It seemed like you were backtracking, or you wanted to restart the process again. But anyway, I'll like to hear what you had to say today.
Sure. So I think you're right. I mean, on all fronts, and this is a very disappointing series of events and there were a number of missteps, I think, and a lot of lessons that I learned throughout this process that I want to make sure are not recreated as we go through this again, because Congress has already signified that they want to overturn other DC laws. When it comes to this kind of 95% piece, I think you're right, and that is my plan. As I think about the best path forward, I think it is best to get all of our allies at the same table and make sure that at least this part that there is much agreement on, we can move forward. It's my view and understanding that if I were to do that tomorrow, even removing the parts that are most contentious, it would still not pass because Republicans have now kind of smelled victory, smelled blood in the water, so to speak, and would just kind of not be fact-based about some of this again and overturn it. And so I think it's better to give a little bit of breathing room between last week and moving forward. But I do think you're right, when we do pick it up again, and maybe that's in a couple of months, that the best path forward is to try to have agreement and ensure that we have agreement on most of the bill and get through that package, because again, that's what was really driving the need to modernize the code. And I'll just say, if I may, this is part of the local process. This is how we make laws all the time. This law wasn't going to be implemented until 2025. And so it was always my plan to address other pieces of the bill that I had problems with. I introduced an amendment last year about the gun penalties that didn't go through. The mayor had problems with it. I've spoken with her about some of those challenges, committed to having a hearing on that. And I know she and I had some agreement there. And so that's all very normal part of any amendatory legislative process, is laws get passed and laws get amended and changed. And so it's unfortunate that that process wasn't able to take place. But we have to be realistic in our new climate and move forward in a way that will be successful.
Thank you. Commissioner Pinto, Councilmember Pinto, sorry about that. I downgraded you there.
Hardly, not at all.
I do have a question. I know that the community in 2C specifically has been sounding the alarm repeatedly about public safety, about the legacy Pat Handy shelter, and these, escalating concerns that have been happening. And a lot of us feel as if those have fallen on deaf ears, that DHS has turned their backs in some way. There's been so much finger pointing that has occurred. I want to know, when we talk about accountability of agencies, where does the accountability, where does the line get drawn, so that when residents are bringing concerns like this forward, that they're not seen as a group of privileged folks living downtown, and their voices should not be equal to other voices in the city, or, oh, they're just mad because there's a shelter next to them. When do those voices get elevated to be actually heard and action taken?
Mm-hmm. Well, first, let me just say I'm so sorry for what you and neighbors have been experiencing, because I share your frustration that there has been such little improvement and such delays that are seemingly, facts being obfuscated or changed. Mm-hmm. And it's been really frustrating for the last several years. I try not to be in the finger pointing business and try to focus on solutions that are going to move us forward. I think that it's really important that our agencies and our mayor know how important this is to folks and are accountable to residents. I will say, from my perspective, as your representative, this is something that I have raised to Mayor Bowser on a number of occasions. I have raised to DHS, DCHA, their directors. I have raised to their boards. I have raised to their staff. I have had repeated meetings with city administrator and the entire mayor's leadership team on this issue. And my team has been following up on this, I'd say weekly, for 2 years.
Yep.
And it's been really frustrating, both for a series of delays, and now as we look into other contract issues that seem to need to be subject to council approval. And that's something that my team is looking into right now. In terms of what we can do about it, my plan has been to focus on getting a strict timeline in place, which the latest is that by April, DHS thinks that the renovations will begin. Of course, I have said on a repeated number of basis that thinking is not sufficient. It's March already, it's mid-March. So we should know if in April this is happening. And if it's going to be delayed again, in theory, we would know by now. I did go again for an in-person tour inside Pat Handy and the swing space and around it with DHS staff and Councilmember Robert White, who has oversight over the housing committee. I met with him again recently to make sure that he understands how big of a priority this is for me, and that from his oversight perspective of these agencies, that this has to be prioritized, because what we've seen the last several years is not acceptable and is not a timeline that's been stuck to. And every time that I've asked the mayor and the city administrator and others, can you please commit to the very least more resources for trash pickup, for security surrounding the building, for services inside the shelters? Every time the answer has been yes, no problem, we're on it. And then I continue to hear concerns from residents. And so I say all that to say I share your frustration. We're going to continue pushing every lever we can think of, with urging and calling them and looking at our contract authority. But I think it's also an important issue that, your at-large council members know is a priority, and the mayor knows is a priority to downtown residents, because she has stated that downtown recovery is a priority for her. And I think it's really fundamental to downtown recovery that we have a safe downtown, and a livable downtown, and a walkable downtown for everybody. And so making these improvements is really fundamental to that larger plan that is important for our city.
Thank you. Thank you. We're going to take two questions that we have on the board right now. We're going to first go to resident Roth.
Hi, council member. I'd like to follow up on Commissioner Strauss's question about the former Balance Gym at 1339 Green Court. I do live next door to it. We are elbow to elbow, and I live in a seniors and disabled population building. We are not a senior center per se. We're a market rate, privately held corporate rental building with assisted living and memory care. So we are still a vulnerable population. Dementia knows no class. Mm-hmm. So as you may remember, there was an encampment at Thomas Circle where criminal enterprises leveraged the use of the encampment. There's a lot of violence, a lot of vandalism. We had several break-ins. We had actually several middle of the night invasions. After the shooting, the encampment was closed, but we continued last year to have a lot of activity in our alley that includes that former Balance Gym. We did not know that DHS bought it until November, when there was a middle of the night shootout by people who were squatting in it, who were shooting at the police, even though surrounded. Luckily, that ended without anybody being hurt. But we didn't even know that DHS had bought it. And it was only, I have to give a shout out to David Ross at DHS, who after repeated requests did get it boarded up, so that hopefully we won't have any more squatters right in our alley. But we are very concerned that we didn't even know that it had the potential to be a shelter until the police told us at 3 a.m. while they're shining lights and trying to capture persons who we believe were part of that whole encampment illegal enterprise. So I would really like to get in front of this so that we are not 5 years from now saying that we're just another Pat Handy shelter situation. How can we get DHS to actually work with the immediate surrounding neighbors? We have restaurants, we have apartment buildings, we have office buildings, we have a lot of things right here on this block, and Commissioner Strauss lives on our block. So how can we somehow set a different tone with this particular building?
Mm-hmm. Well, thank you so much, and nice to see you again, Nancy. So a couple things. First, I think the first step with DHS is to make sure that they have funding for services on site to support the residents in their shelters, whether that be at the locations that we're talking about tonight or all over the city. We need to make sure, I think, that we have full-time on-site mental health care professionals and social workers who can connect folks with resources that they need. And that, again, is a staffing challenge. And so I'm working on building that pipeline through other job training initiatives to get and opening up our licensure to other states who have licensed professionals to do this really important mental health response and to be part of our critical response team when incidents do arise. So I'll just say that at the forefront because I think it's really important that our shelters are successful and that we're effectively serving the residents who are there. And there's a resource gap right now in the services that folks need on site. And so that's one piece that we're working on. In terms of your location, your building, the Thomas Circle encampment got way too out of control. It was an argument that I made on your behalf, on residents surrounding their behalf many times to Wayne Turnage and to Mayor Bowser, because I heard every day from residents, and I live right by there and I walk by myself all the time, of folks would say, is it going to take somebody getting killed before something is done?
And it did.
I said, every day, this is exactly what we're hearing. And we're seeing, guns, bow and arrows, drug sales, other activity. And it did, as you're right. And it was just a horrifying situation. And I'm so sorry that you and other neighbors were dealing with that. In terms of the use of the 1339 Green Court, I raised this, as I mentioned to Commissioner Strauss last week again to DHS, and they told me that it's not going to be ready for use until 2027, I believe. And I told them that it was really important that nothing moved forward without an opportunity for community input, that there were a lot of neighbors who had great ideas, and we need to make sure that we're including them in the best use for this property, that we're including the commissioners, and that we're taking a beat before anything moves forward. And so they said they're years away from any type of those decisions, but she understood and registered my concern. So I and my team will stay on top of that to make sure we don't just see a new use pop up overnight. But I do want to share, I did just have that conversation last week, and it does seem like DHS is many years off from making a determination about the best population to serve there.
It's a really challenging property to use. It's bounded on two sides, literally by alleys. There's no sidewalk, there's no nothing, there's no frontage. And the other two sides by my building and by my building's parking. So there is no outdoor space. There is no ability to service it. I don't know how they're going to get supply trucks in, fire trucks, any number of other things. It could be quite nice as LGBTQ housing or as permanent supportive housing or some sort of lower security kind of installation. Mm-hmm. But there are so many multiple uses of this block and so many different kinds of stakeholders, including the Green Lantern, which is, a stone's throw away. So.
Yeah, no, I hear you.
Thank you.
I appreciate that. And I will keep carrying forward that message.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We'll take one more question. I'm sorry, we had a little issue with starting our timer. As folks know, we do have a 2-minute discussion for people to respond to information. And additionally, we do have quorum. We do have the our other commissioners joining us, Rebecca Strauss from 2C02 and Thomas Lee from 2C03. So next up, we have last question for Councilmember Pinto will be Resident Marks.
Thank you, Chairman Schenkel. I'm going to abide by the 2-minute rule. Okay, so first of all, a big shout out to Councilmember Pinto. Thank you so much for your service. I just want to focus, given the time limit, on an issue that you and I talked about in office hours, and that is the continuing problem we have with the drug trafficking at 7th and H. I'm looking out the window right now. I see on the west side of 7th Street, just south of H, drug dealers that have been out there all day in 25-degree cold. And I think that given your position as chairman of this public safety committee, we have to peel away these layers. Who are these people? Where do they come from? Why are they out there 18 hours a day? Who are their clients? Why is it, despite the great efforts of Captain Roth, who's on this call from MPD, who's given us around-the-clock coverage, thank you, Captain Roth, the work that's being done by the Metro Police that have also 18-hour-a-day coverage in the Metro station, this problem persists. Sometimes there are as many as 30, 40 drug dealers out there. What's driving this trade? And I think that you having an informational hearing to bring in the best experts from the Attorney General's office, from the U.S. Attorney, from Metro Police, people who know about drug use. All of this started, frankly, after the decriminalization of marijuana and the decriminalization of Metro fare evasion. It was a perfect storm. After those two events occurred, we just had like a proliferation of issues. Okay, that's enough. I'm anxious to hear your response. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Marks. And it's very timely because I was just over there on Friday meeting with Monumental Sports and some other businesses there, as well as Chairman Mendelson, to talk about immediate interventions needed on 7th Street to improve public safety and address particularly the incidents of drugs and violence that we're seeing. So we talked about a lot of different ideas. So I mentioned the bid safety officers that I'm hoping to fund in this budget to support the downtown bid so we can have more eyes on the ground. I talked to folks about opening up our Metropolitan Police Department hiring to other federal public safety agencies and Virginia and Maryland departments. They may need to go through additional training, of course, because MPD abides by district laws and there are other parts of that training. But I think opening that up is an important consideration that we're looking into now at the committee to address some of the hiring and retention challenges. And want to add my thanks to Captain Roth as well for his responsiveness and working so hard to address some of these issues. I'm also working with the courts and our judges on potential changes to some of our statutes that dictate what our judges are allowed to consider when they're making a call on if they're holding somebody or if they are sentencing somebody. And in my review of the situation the last 2 months, it is very prescriptive. And I am generally a believer that we need to be giving judges discretion so that if somebody is a risk to themselves or to others, that we are not, saying, okay, we'll see you in several months for your trial. And so those are some of the pieces that we're looking at. We're also looking at working more closely with Monumental Sports as they, monitor the area and have their own security for some of it. I think your idea, Mr. Marks, though, about a hearing to bring all these stakeholders together is a great idea. Our next step is going to be meeting with the U.S. Attorney and OAG again. I've met with both of them, the Attorney General and our U.S. Attorney, to think about, from OAG's perspective, how we can think about our nuisance laws from a DC state perspective for nuisance to the entire block, and from U.S. Attorney's perspective on how we can get these cases prioritized, because I hear you and I know that, and I share it. There's so much frustration that same people seem to be arrested or intervened on over and over again, and then there's no improvement to the situation. So that's my next step. But I have another note of it. It is on my list with the committee to think about having a public hearing so we can bring these issues to light. But I think it's a great idea and hopefully something that we can do collaboratively. One of the things, and Chair Schenkel, I'll have this be my last comment. One of the things that we did for my gun violence roundtable is tried to structure it a little differently. So we had 3 days. So one day was virtual witnesses, one day was in-person witnesses at the Anacostia Neighborhood Library, and one day was with government witnesses. But instead of having me sit at the dais and ask agencies questions, we had it at a round table to facilitate more problem solving. And that's kind of how I'm trying to approach this committee. And I think this topic is a good avenue to employ that model. So thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Pinto. And I think that these are all great points that Mr. Marks brings up as well. I'm also very concerned about the vending, allowing vending to happen without a license in the district. I know this is a pilot program that's starting. However, I can just see this escalating and creating more drama for areas like 2C in downtown.
And want to make very clear, this pilot is not in Ward 2. This is a Ward 1 pilot, a concern that I shared over a dozen of occasions, because I know that it already is a problem, even in our licensed environment. And so taking that away is not right for every neighborhood. And so I'm interested to see how this works in Ward 1. But I know we already have an illegal street vending challenge on 7th Street. And I understand, and that Ward 2 is not part of this pilot.
Yes. Yes. Thank you very much. We so appreciate you taking time and being with us this evening and sharing your upcoming work with us. So we look forward to working together with you as we continue to make DC a better place and hopefully a state at some point.
Love it. Thank you so much for having me, and so much for all of your continued partnership and great ideas. We're going to keep trying to see some major improvements this year and champion a lot of these investments that I know we'd all like to see. So thanks so much, and looking forward to seeing you all soon.
Awesome. Thank you all so much. We'd like to move forward with MPD 2. Do we have Lieutenant Garvin with us this evening? Or someone from MPD 2?
Yes.
Hey, how are you?
I'm wonderful. Good evening, everyone.
Good evening. There you are. Okay. Terrific.
I will start with a few stats, and I would just speak on some significant arrests that we were able to accomplish. So this 30 days, we had 3 burglaries. Compared to the last 60 days, it was 2, so it's up 50%. Motor vehicle thefts, we had 3 additional with regards to the 30 pass with the past month. We're down 58% in theft from autos, negative 3% in thefts. We had 0 homicides. Thank goodness. We want to keep that up. We did have 1 sex abuse that I will speak on. So I'll go from there. First, we did have an ADW gun / robbery happening in 1200 block of Connecticut Avenue. The victim was pretty much leaving. It was, I want to say, near the clubs. Happened around 3 o'clock in the morning, close to 4 o'clock. He was walking when he was approached by 2 suspects, which they brandished a handgun and announced a robbery. A scuffle ensued, and the suspect shot the victim in his hip. At that moment, the victim did surrender his property, and the suspects made good of their escape. So this case is being actively investigated by our 2nd District Detective's Office, and we do have a BOLO and a YouTube clip up in an attempt to identify those suspects. Next up, we did have that sexual assault that I spoke about in the 1900 block of Connecticut Avenue. That occurred on February the 28th. C1 reported that S1 assaulted her and attempted to engage in an unwanted forced sexual act. The suspect was arrested on March the 3rd. Next up, we did have a theft first degree arrest that occurred on March the 2nd. It happened at the Macy's departmental store. The suspect attempted to steal $1,600 of store merchandise from the store. We were able to respond, and we actually apprehended the individual after a brief foot pursuit. There was an unarmed carjacking on March the 2nd at the intersection of P and 20th Street. C1 stated he was approached by 2 suspects while sitting in his vehicle. C1 then stated that the suspect opened his front driver's side door and repeatedly said, "Give me your keys," while attempting to pull him out of his vehicle. The complainant was able to fight off the suspects and flag down club zone officers that were nearby. Both of the suspects fled in an unknown direction. The carjacking task force is currently investigating this case. We had a theft stolen auto. there was an individual that was sitting in their car in the block of 14th and L Street, where they were rear-ended. When that individual got out of their vehicle to check the damage, the driver in the other car jumped in their car and drove off. We were able to locate that car in the 6th district, but no arrests have been made at this time. So just be careful. If you do get into a motor vehicle accident, I would suggest that you just call the police and just wait till someone arrives on the scene. I'm not sure how prevalent this is, where we having people just using this as a tactic to gain entry to the victim's vehicles and taking off, but just be careful with that. We had a simple assault arrest in 1100 block of K Street Northwest. I actually was on the scene of this one. The subject approached a woman and threw her to the ground. We were able to get to the scene fairly quickly and place the individual under arrest. The woman did not suffer any injuries related to the assault. And I believe that the individual was suffering from some type of mental health disability. Last but not least, we had a burglary 2 of establishment on March the 11th in the 1200 block of G Street. The suspect used an unknown object to shatter the glass and gain entry to the establishment. Stolen was a cash register containing approximately $310, several chargers, phone cases, and software. As I was on this call, the 2nd district detectives actually sent me a bolo. We believe that this is one of our known serial burglars who was committing the burglaries in the 900 block of F Street at Peruvian Connection. So he's back. So we're going to have to give more special attention in that area. He for maybe a month, in 2 weeks, we didn't see him. We set up observation posts. He never came around. I think he moved to the 3rd district to another district, and now he's back. So he's back on our radar. So we're going to get on top of that. That's all I have. Sorry if I was a little long-winded.
Nope, no problem. That was great. Thank you so much, Lieutenant Garvin. It's very helpful. Commissioners, do you have any questions for MPG2? Any community members have questions for Lieutenant Garvin? Okay. Thank you, Lieutenant. We appreciate you being here with us this evening. And
Absolutely.
We're going to call up Captain Roth from MPD1.
Hey, how you doing, Commissioner? Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. How are you doing?
I'm doing pretty good. And I'm going to ask Lieutenant Garvin to send me that bolo too, because I had several burglaries in my area. So if I'll talk on those.
What's a bolo?
A bolo is just be on the lookout. So generally what happens is if there's a crime that's committed and we're able to get some camera footage or someone takes a photograph of that person, we'll put it into a bolo, be on the lookout. We'll send it out to the officers so that while they're out on patrol, you can generally get, if you go to MPD's YouTube page, they put a lot of things out on there. So essentially those suspect lookouts that they put out in video form, we just have photographs on them and we send them out to the officers so that they can look for these individuals while they patrol. So for the 1D side, in the last 30 days, I have 2 violent crimes to report out on. They're both robberies. One was a robbery in the 700 block of 7th Street Northwest. This occurred on February 19th in the afternoon hours. Essentially, our complainant was walking southbound on 7th Street. She had her cell phone in her hand. She passed a group of juveniles walking northbound, and they snatched her cell phone and ran. This is a not uncommon occurrence in Chinatown area. Generally, if I get a robbery there, sometimes they can be with a gun, but generally it's just a cell phone snatching. I had a question the other day of what are they doing with the cell phones, whether they're pawning them, fencing them, whatever they're doing. I'm not real sure because sometimes we'll find them a couple of blocks later. So I don't know if it's just the thrill of it or what it is. But what I would ask of you guys is, regardless if you have an iPhone or an Android phone, please put some kind of tracking device on that phone. I know for iPhone users, you can do Find My iPhone, and that helps us close a lot of cases. I guess another a more important ask is please know your password to your iPhone, find my iPhone account so that we can log in from one of our phones and track your phone. The second robbery that I have, actually, let me go back to that first one. We had a stop in that, we stopped somebody in that case. The complainant was unable to identify. So I think there might be a warrant pending on that one. So it'll either be a closure or a declination, depending on what the U.S. Attorney's Office decides to do. The next robbery was early morning hours, 600 block of E Street Northwest. A construction worker was walking to work when a vehicle pulled up. Some individuals exited that vehicle, implied that they had a weapon, and took some of his personal property. We have a bolo out for that. I'm not sure. This occurred on February 17th in the morning, so I'm not sure if that's part of a pattern. Garvin, I don't know if you remember if that was one of the ones that was between us, you, and 3D. But if it is, then Carjacking Task Force is investigating that as well. As I mentioned earlier, there was some burglaries that occurred in PSA 101, the Chinatown area, mostly Mount Vernon, but the same MO, unfortunately different suspects. We were able to get some CCTV footage of some suspects. The lookouts are different for, I think we had 3 of them, and they're different lookouts for all 3. But they gained access to the properties by smashing out the front windows with a brick. And they were kind of targeting alcohol and electronic devices. So I had a bid meeting earlier today. So I asked them that, hey, if they have those electronic devices, if there's a secure location inside the building where they can put them so they're not out in view, they could, harden their storefronts with either cameras or pull down gates or whatever they got to do to try to prevent some of these. I suspect that we'll be able to close some of these burglaries out. And once we do make an arrest, we'll probably be able to close the vast majority of them out. We have made some arrests in Northeast along the 8th Street corridor for burglaries, similar MO where they threw bricks through windows. So our detective's office is seeing if any of those are related to the ones that occurred over in Northwest. So hopefully, like I said, those will be closed relatively shortly. For our motor vehicle thefts, I think last time we spoke, Hyundai and Kia Challenge was a big thing in the news. So the department was given over 1,000 wheel locks to distribute to residents of the district that are owners of, I believe, 2011 to 2020 or 2021 models of Hyundais and Kias. The first district received over 100 of those, and we've since almost exhausted our supply. I think at last check this morning, there might have been 10 left. But in that effort, we have seen motor vehicle thefts trending in the right direction. So we were all getting beat up across the district earlier this year. But now over the last 30 to 60 days, they're starting to come down a little bit. Where I'm still seeing an issue is with my hop-in motor vehicles. Again, it's the Uber Eats, Uber drivers, DoorDash, whatever, pulling up, parking, leaving the cars running, doors unlocked, and then they come out and someone has jumped in their car. We do recover the majority of those vehicles. But, it's frustrating for me that just really a little bit, negligence is really what's driving our crime stats when it comes to motor vehicle thefts. You know what I mean? Like if you're not responsible enough to find a legal parking spot, not block a bike lane, and turn your vehicle off, now I got to come out and take a stolen auto report because you left your keys in your car while this is no secret. It's been on the news. We've been talking about it for, 3 months now. So everybody should know at this point not to leave. It's a lot of it's hard to be empathetic when you see how it could have been prevented 100 different ways, but regardless, like I said, they are moving in the right direction. So that's a good thing. And in regards to the Panhandle shelter, we did put a light tower up in the alley back there. We've tried to increase our patrols through there to try to, prevent some of the quality of life issues that are taking place there. I have directed our folks to start enforcing more of the public consumption of marijuana, drinking in public. I know that we've, without getting into too much of the background, so we can issue citations for that, and generally they have 15 days to pay. If they don't pay, then we issue a warrant. So those are some of the things that we do if we don't make an actual on-scene custodial arrest right there. In that space, when we do make an arrest, we have been asking for the U.S. Attorney's Office to issue a stay away from Chinatown, not just the block, not just the area, Chinatown proper. So we've asked for that. Now, whether or not they're granting them, that's something I'm gonna have to follow up on. But if they are, and we see those individuals back in the Chinatown area, well, then now that gives us the power to arrest them for contempt. So that's what we're focusing on. As far as Metro is concerned, I have a walk tomorrow with Mokers in the area, and I'm going to get with Captain McKinney of Metro, and we're just going to see, like, you know, if I can couple my guys with his guys and just kind of, you know, we all know what the Chinatown unit is and what it was. But I think with our partnership with Metro, if I can, you know, give him, you know, 3 or 4 officers, and he can provide 4 or 5 or 6 officers, and, you know, now I got 10 officers, and they can go out there and they can really, I think, have a positive impact. So that's what we're going to look at doing tomorrow. And in that space, I talked to the Gallery Place property managers, and I know that he has been in communication with them as well, as far as, you know, trying to, you know, along the H Street side of the Gallery Place Metro, there is fences that can come down. I think on the F Street side, they can close that Metro down entirely at night. Along the 7th Street side, there are no gates. From what I understand, the gates on the H Street side haven't operated in upwards of 15 years. So I assume that they're probably not operational. But we're looking at space, or I guess solutions, to see if we can get like those accordion fences that will go across. And if we can close that Metro or block off that area even for 5 or 6 hours at night, I think that'll go a long way to disrupting some of the stuff that's taking place over there. So, you know, on top of that, we talked about, you know, playing classical music, doing stuff with lighting, fencing, all of those things in an effort to kind of keep people from hanging out under there. And what I've realized recently that I didn't know is that that's actually private property, and there are barring notices for some of those individuals. We just have to come up with a better solution for the Gallery Place management to call us and say, hey, this person is barred. And then, you know, once we have that, then we can act on that barring notice. And then again, I think that that's going to be our approach. If we can find individuals that are barred, make that arrest, ask for the stay away, and then if we get that permanent stay away from the court in place, then, you know, that has a little bit more weight behind it than just a minor marijuana lockup or barring notice. So hopefully that'll have a positive impact. And then, you know, with Capital One, they have quite a few events. That's kind of where I got beat up earlier on in the beginning of the year with robberies. They had a boxing match and then a concert up there. And, you know, 1D is kind of unique in the sense that we have all of the arenas. We have all of the sports complexes all the way out to RFK. We have H Street, Chinatown, the Navy Yard, the Wharf. We have all of these areas. So at any given moment, you know, our district population can swell by, you know, 250,000, you know, depending on what day it is and what's going on. So with that, I say all that to say is I did have some robberies that occurred, and it was on one of those nights that we had 30,000 additional people in the district. I've since gone back to the drawing table and come up with a better plan, I think. And the last few events that Capital One has had, we've had not so much as a vehicle broken into. So we have a couple of big events coming up on the next couple of weekends. On the 25th and the 1st, there's a couple of concerts taking place there. So I think that this is going to be a pretty good test for the plan that we have in place to see if it's going to hold up on some of these larger events. So far, it's worked out well. So we can hope to continue that trend. Other than that, our community outreach has, I don't know if you've seen them out there at Gallery Pace Metro. They put a pop-up table out. They try to get literature out. They try to do those things. There is a multi-agency task force, and I suspect that it's going to be making its way through Chinatown again. Again, this is something that started over in Ward 7 and 8 with the homicide reduction program or partnership. So if I can get that into Chinatown, then that's what I want. And that's kind of, I think, a pseudo little thing that's going to be taking place tomorrow with some different government agencies and some stakeholders. And so hopefully that we can get some resources in and around the Chinatown area. But other than that, PSA 101, which is pretty much encompasses Chinatown, for the last 30 to 60 days, our violent crime is down 60%. Our property crime is down 6%. So overall, we're down 15%. We kind of stumbled coming out of the gates with some of the robberies we had up there around some of the bigger events, but we've kind of gotten a handle on it, knock on wood. So I'm hoping to continue this trend and, hopefully DHS, the shelter, everything kind of falls into place and we can move into that space and increase our footprint and kind of have a really good summer is what I'm anticipating. I'm not even going to say hopeful. It's going to happen. Yes. I'm speaking them into existence. So
awesome.
Does anyone have any questions for me?
We do like that.
Good.
Speak it in there. Commissioner Lee.
Yeah, this is a question for, I guess, both Officer Garvin and Officer Roth. There was a recent news report in the papers about a large number of arrested individuals being let out of prison because of some procedural issues. These were people with long criminal histories, and I have some concerns about what happened and how do we avoid that from happening again in the future. And also there's another report about DC not meeting its recruitment numbers despite very generous bonuses. And what could the city do more to improve and attract the officers?
Well, I guess let me touch on the I saw that news article today. I didn't get a chance to read all of it. And I'm not very smart on the topic, so I don't want to say too much on it. What I will say is that stemmed from the 7th District's crime suppression team. Apparently there were some issues with some arrests that they made. And from what I understand, the chief has touched on it, but I really don't feel comfortable speaking on it because I'm not extremely smart on what was taking place. I'm primarily focused on what we do here in the 1st District, and we haven't had any issues like that here, and I'm sure Lieutenant Garvin hasn't had any issues like that in the 2nd District. So those things are just going to have to play out. But I'm not real, like I said, I'm not real familiar with what was taking place down there, so I don't really feel comfortable speaking on it.
Okay.
As far as recruitment, policing is an unpopular profession at the moment. So, you can throw the kitchen sink at it and, there's not, I guess, a big appetite to be a cop these days. If I knew of suggestions that could increase our recruitment, I would certainly pass those on to the powers that be. But a $20,000 signing bonus and all the other incentives, housing and stuff like that they're offering, I think is a lot more than what other jurisdictions are doing. But we're unique here in the district in the sense that a state might have state police and sheriff's departments and local police and all of these things, and here in the district, MPD handles all of that. And, there's something said that, oh, well, DC is the most heavily policed city in the world. And that may be true, but as far as your local law enforcement officers, Capitol Police does help us out around the Capitol, and Park Police does help us out around the parks. But, FBI police aren't coming to patrol your neighborhoods. The U.S. Mint police aren't coming to answer calls for service. You know what I mean? So those all fall to the Metropolitan Police Department. So we handle all of our own hospital details, all of those things, the hundreds or thousands of First Amendment assemblies that occur in the district each year. All of those fall on us. So, it can really become a daunting task, especially to somebody who maybe is just out of college or, this is their first job and they come out here and then, next thing you know, your days off are being taken away. You're already working 10.5 hours, but now, you're working 18-hour days, 6 days a week, just to meet some of the staffing needs. So it's kind of difficult right now. I'll just put it that way. But, I know that we are doing our best to try to recruit and to get as many qualified applicants as we can. And I'm hopeful that, in the next few years, it will be back up to where we need to be.
That's great. We have a one hand up from Mr. Marks.
Thank you, Captain Roth. Just as I mentioned to Councilmember Brooke, I wanted to give you a shout out for the round-the-clock coverage that we have here at 7th and H. I'm looking out the window now and I see one of your cars. We're so grateful at what you've done. It's really improved our quality of life and our safety. And trust me, this is huge for us. Two very quick questions. The first is, you mentioned about people with orders, stay away orders, and identifying them. How exactly would you identify? I'm looking out the window right now. Many of them are wearing face masks, which has now been permitted under DC law. Restriction was lifted. In the absence of facial recognition technology, how are you supposed to ID these people?
Well, so what I will say, and thank you for the kind words, Mr. Mark, I appreciate that. And I intend to keep that unit there. I know that if I could do more in that space, I definitely would. And hopefully I'll be able to relatively shortly. But as far as identifying folks, like, look, these guys are out there every single day. The officers are out there every single day. They know who they are. They don't need to see them. There are officers that can look at a video and be like, oh, that's so-and-so. They can base it off his walk. You know what I mean? They're intimately familiar with these folks. When I was a patrol officer in the 6th district, I could hear a lookout come across the radio and I'd be like, oh, I know who that is. And I'd go right over and pick them up. So the officers know who these guys are. They know who they've arrested. Once they see them back out in the community, we have a system that they can go into and generally look up to see if that stay away has been granted. And if that's the case, then, we can lock them up again. But so even if they are wearing masks or different clothing or whatever, I would say that the officers are intimately familiar with, some of the new guys aren't, but the guys that have been out there in Chinatown for quite some time, they know who the players are and who they need to keep an eye on, and who's supposed to be in the area, who's not supposed to be in the area. So if they request that stay away and it's actually granted, then they'll be able to enforce it.
Okay,
Awesome.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Lieutenant Garvin and Captain Roth. I appreciate you being here and providing an update for us this evening.
Of course.
We'd like to move forward with Ward 2's Merit Liaison, and I saw that Christopher Powell was on with us this evening.
Hi, can you hear me?
We can hear you. Welcome.
Hi, how's it going?
Good.
Like he's Christopher Powell with the Mayor's Office of Community Relations and Services, and I know we're a little behind, so I'll be brief. I just have a few reminders for everyone. Firstly, just let you know, DPW has started street sweeping again. That's going on for about 2 weeks, and just last week they started enforcing parking violation fines for those zones. It's about a $45 fine, and I think $100 if you are towed. As well as to echo Officer Roth, if you own a 2011 to 2021 Kia, or Hyundai, there are eligible anti-theft devices available, and they are first come, first serve. And I believe he said they have a few left, but that would be station to station if you needed to call around to find another one. As well as the fact that we are in the middle of ongoing maintenance from DC Water. So if the taste of your water is a little different, they have changed their disinfectant from chloramine to chlorine until about May 15th. If you filter your water in a Brita, or if your building has maybe a reverse osmosis system, you might not taste that at all. And then I can go down to the Department of Small and Local Business Development is still accepting applications for their robust retail citywide grants. They're going to be rewarding about 100 businesses with $5,000 grants. And those deadlines are, that's about April 10th. We have a little more time on that. And my final reminder is that DC will be COVID centers at the end of this month. And that's about it. And I can take some questions if we have time.
Great. Thank you so much, Mr. Powell. We appreciate you being here. Any questions for the mayor's office? All right. Well, thank you very much. We appreciate you.
Thank you.
Do we have anybody from Council Member Chairman Mendelson office? I don't believe I saw anybody on this evening. Okay, and next we would like to move forward with our Ward 2 Board of Education representative, Alistair Chang. Alistair?
Hey, thank you, commissioners.
Hey.
You, Chair Schenkel. Good to be with you all tonight, and happy Pi Day. I am Alistair Chang. I'm the Ward 2 member on the DC State Board of Education, and appreciate this opportunity to update you on what I've been working on.
Awesome. Thank you for being here.
So my top priority on the board is to advance literacy. If you haven't learned to read, you can't read to learn. And right now, only 26% of fourth grade students in DC performed at or above the proficient level on the NAEP exam in reading. So 74% of DC public school students are not reading proficiently by fourth grade. We are the lowest in the country, and that is bad for us who live here. That is bad for us as a country. It is absolutely me coming to you today is really an ask for your help to amplify this. I think one of the main reasons, of course, that this is the case for DC and for many major cities is that most constituents who vote are not directly involved in public education. And so this often gets lost at a time like now in the middle of a budget conversation, right? It gets deprioritized. I got a chance to write a op-ed with our superintendent, Dr. Grant, who, along with Councilmember Pinto, has been very supportive of this work and using science of reading methods and proven evidence-based methods to do this work. And so I will be coming back to you at later this fall with a more specific ask after this task force that we have launched and are working on right now. It's meeting regularly, comes up with very specific coordinated asks for the end of year. I'm also the chair of the Education Standards Committee on our board, and we've been working hard to revise our social studies standards, which had not been revised since 2006. OSSI came out with a draft, and OSSI is the superintendent's office of the standards, and I got to work on with my colleagues a letter to OSSI with what we gathered from our constituents, comments that we gathered from mainly social studies teachers and parents and educators on what we would like to still see changed in this revised draft. Now is the time to give us more feedback. So if you know any social studies teachers, any parents, any students, please, it is very dry as far as the document goes, but we may not get another chance to revise this for another 20 years. So some things to really highlight in this, we have woven DC history throughout all grade levels. We've increased representation in experiences of people of color. And something that I was really pushing hard for is more historiography and examination of historical evidence. So how do we distinguish primary sources from secondary sources is a skill I think you can apply beyond the classroom, right? And so that is now woven into these new standards. Some other key themes that my colleagues and I are working on include student safety, mental health, and teacher retention. I will pause there, welcome your questions, and appreciate your help to make sure that we are keeping public education as part of our conversations with the council members and the mayor's office as we sort through priorities for the city.
Thank you so much for being here. I know that so many other professions right now are facing challenges with retention of staff and getting people to even take some of these roles. What is that like in the DC school system? Are we still operating at shortages? And
it's
yes.
really tough. I mean, listening to the officers talk about how they're recruiting, we are struggling, right? So everything from classroom teachers, yes, to bus drivers, right? We have a severe shortage of bus drivers, and we've been trying things like giving bonuses. We've had this big job fair for bus drivers, and we're still short on bus drivers, right? Teachers, it is, we have a really big teacher retention problem. It is news as of today that some of our council members who have been working with us and educators, new teacher retention focused piece of legislation, and so Commissioner Chair Schenkel, this is a problem that the State Board of Ed has been working on since pre-pandemic. We had a really low teacher retention rate that really got exacerbated during the pandemic. But we have, funded 2 studies to look at this and look at best practices. And most of the recommendations we've made have not been followed up on by other agencies with actual budget and power.
Got it. Commissioners, other commissioners, do you have, go ahead, Commissioner Rowe.
Yes, I wanted to just touch on the legislation that Councilmember White was introducing that was going to, I think it just got announced today or yesterday, that was going to add 2 mental health days for teachers and additional resources and support. If our 2C folks want to help out with that, what is the best thing they can do to support that effort?
Yes, great, thank you. So please write, it's my understanding that our council member is supportive as well, but please write her and let her know that, and to make sure that she knows that constituents in Ward 2 are supportive, as well as the at-large council members, and that would be greatly appreciated.
Thank you very much.
Are there other questions for Commissioner Chang? Thank you so much for being here. We so appreciate your updates from us, and anything that we can do to help to continue to promote education across Ward 2 and across the district. We are here to support, because it is a huge issue, and 26% is not a good number.
Thank you, Chair Schenkel, and I would appreciate the chance to come back with a more specific ask later this year.
We would love to have you back. Just let us know when, and we will make room.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. We will now move forward with the local events that impact the community. And we have first up the 2023 National Cherry Blossom Festival Parade, scheduled for Saturday, April 15th, 2023. And I have Linda Lindamood. Did I do that wrong?
No, it's Linda Lindamood. Two Lindas.
Oh, got it. I thought I had made a typo. I'm sorry.
Nope, you got it right. You got it right. And it's all, everybody does that. So thank you so much, sir.
You're welcome.
My name is Linda Lindamood. I am the Director of Operations for the National Cherry Blossom Festival. I sit atop of all of our signature events in the festival period. Tonight I'm here and honored to present to you an overview of the 2023 National Cherry Blossom Festival Parade. As the chairman said, we are on Saturday, April 15th. But with that, there's always a lot of activity that surrounds our event. So I don't know, I shared our Mayor's Task Group presentation with you, sir.
Yep.
I don't know if you want to pull that up or whether you wanted me to share my screen. I can move
Could you share your screen? That would be great.
I absolutely can, sir. Thank you.
Yes, I think that would be easier for us.
Okay. Thank you. Maybe I can share my screen. Let's see here. There we go. So as you can see, this is the presentation that we've given to the Mayor's Task Group.
Mhm.
What I will do, if you don't mind, I'll move quickly through this, just, because I know that you guys have a lot to cover this evening. As I mentioned, our parade is 10 to 2 on April 15th. However, we do start to set up along Constitution Avenue. You'll start to see some activity out there. We'll start building our bleachers on the 28th, April 3rd, in the South Curb Lane down by Constitution Avenue between 15th and 17th Street. It's the same bleacher set that we've had for many, many years. So you'll see that happening for the first week from the 3rd to the 7th. We are not working outside of rush hour. So we will be there between 9:30 and 4 every day, setting that up for that week. And then we move right into our parade week, which you'll see a shift coming down the street up to the telecast area along Constitution Avenue. Between 7th and 9th Street on Con. Again, on Monday, we'll start building our bleachers on the south side of Constitution Avenue in that general area. In that area, you'll also see a lot of TV equipment and things along those lines. That will all start to load in on Thursday and Friday. We have a heavy load in that telecast area. That's the area that we call that, between 7th and 9th. And then we also have quite a bit of activity on the National Mall, just right around the 9th. If there was a 9th Street that moves through the center of the mall, we have our production compound, which is just above the 9th Street tunnel on that gravel panel. So we're out there from Thursday all the way through the Saturday evening, setting up all of our equipment and getting ready for our parade. So for our parade morning, actually, I'll back up just a little bit. Our parade this year is neighbored by a number of large scale events. So this year, our boundary is going to be from 6th Street all the way to 23rd Street on Constitution Avenue. Bounded right up to us is the Sakura Matsuri Festival on Constitution Avenue down to 3rd up to above Pennsylvania Avenue. So that is in play as well. Also on this day is the Emancipation Day Parade, which happens right after our parade. So as you can expect, there's a lot of road closures, but one of the things that the National Cherry Blossom does is every year we host a deconfliction meeting with all of the other event organizers. So we can just understand everybody's footprint, how they're coming and going, what the road closures are and the impact on the community. But this year we're going to actually add into that a tabletop exercise. And all of our local agencies are invited to that, as well as the all of the organizers. So should there be some type of incident in our footprint or in the neighboring footprints, there'll be a unified command in place for this. That will happen. The unified command post is generally somewhere near, it's somewhere on Pennsylvania Avenue, probably closer to the White House, just because it's out of the perimeter of all of the neighboring events. So you'll start to see a lot of activity around this general area. So for us, we really take our road closures only on Saturday morning. We start them at 3 a.m. We close we will close 7th Street from Independence to Pennsylvania Avenue, Constitution Avenue from 7th to 9th Street, and Jefferson and Madison from 4th to 14th Street, just to get that safety perimeter in place. That is primarily for us to set everything up, for us to do all of our parade rehearsals before the parade steps off at 10 o'clock. In preparation for a 10 o'clock parade, you'll see the road closures will actually have some mobile bleachers that will be on the West End. We call that the West End, which is down by the White House, between 16th and 17th Street. Those are mobile bleachers. They're in the street. They get loaded in probably right around 3 o'clock in the morning, and then there's some traffic control out there from US Park. But as we start to shut down the roadways, what typically MPD does, they're wonderful partners to the festival. MPD helps us contain our areas where we actually have activity, but they also try to keep the community moving, and they do that through keeping the 12th Street Tunnel and the 9th Street Tunnel, all of those moving, the 3rd Street Tunnel, all of the entry in and around as much as they possibly can. So we work closely with them to make sure that we adhere to where we are supposed to be and where we're not supposed to be. But about 8:30, you'll start to see almost a rolling closure that will start right at 9th Street and Constitution Avenue. And MPD will take control of those intersections all the way from 9th down to the end of what our official end of the parade is, 17th Street. So that is a coordination between MPD and US Park Police in closing those roadways. This year in the West End down by the White House, we're hoping to do a little bit more activity, a little bit of pre-show, because it takes a while for the parade to get from 7th and 9th Street down to 17th Street. So we have some really fun local entertainment that will be out there entertaining our folks as they're sitting in their in their bleachered area. So the parade will step off at 7th Street at 10 a.m. By the time it gets to the West End, which is right in front of the White House, it'll be about 10:30. So our finale unit in front of the archives, sorry, my dogs. Excuse me, just one second.
They always know the most perfect time to chime in.
Yes, they do. Yes, they do. So our finale unit in the telecast area will be at 12 o'clock. The finale unit down in the West End is at 12:30. After the units leave the intersection of 17th and Con, they'll go into a dispersal area, and I'll show you these maps as we continue to talk. They'll go into those dispersal units. Typically, the floats will go to the left. The balloons go to the left, and they deflate on National Park Service land. Our floats go up 19th Street and 18th Street. And they have all of the people that are on the floats disembark there. There's there's a first aid station there. There is a volunteer lunch tent there. But typically in that general area, we are done with everything in the dispersal area by about 2:30. All the floats are gone, all the people are gone, and we have all of our props and everything picked up. So that was a bit of an overview for the day. As I mentioned, I did send this along. You are welcome to peruse it at your leisure. For health and medical, we are working with DC FEMS, DC Fire EMS. They are going to be supporting our event for all of the transport response. So we will also have GW medical faculty that are going to be manning our hard stations of EMS stations that are built stations. So we will have full medical with nurses and doctors in our production compound at 7th and Madison. We will also have a full first aid and EMS section down on Virginia Avenue for any parade people that, performers that need a little bit of aid, or the public. We also have medical at 7th Street, 9th Street, 12th Street, 14th Street, and then down at 17th Street. We also work closely. We have one of our event teammates is in that mobile command that I spoke to you about earlier, the Unified Command. And what we do is we work with DC FEMS. If something happens along our parade route that is in our parade audience, and it hits the 911 system, our Unified Command can send response out to that with our units that we have on the parade route. So that's for a quick response. As I mentioned, we do exercise. We do tabletop exercises for our parades or for our signature events. And we don't know what those scenarios are quite yet, because we always want to be surprised about that. But we do take public safety as our number one concern, and making sure that we have all of the right people in the right places, the service levels, also the collaboration with all of the different agencies in Washington, D.C., to make sure that we keep everything safe for everyone. And then let me run through the map. I can show you the maps real quick. So as you can see on this map here, you can kind of see our footprint. You can see in this purple box is Sakura Matsuri, this little center section where there's all kinds of things. This is our telecast area on Constitution Avenue between 7th and 9th. Here's Emancipation Day. There also on this day on the National Mall is a 5K. It always is on the same day of our parade. So as you can imagine, there's a lot of moving parts around here. And I can promise you from an event organizer perspective, we are very, very focused on making sure that we have access to all of the areas that we need. Also, we are there to assist the other areas should they need something. And the coordination across all of these events is impressive. When you talk about bringing all of these different organizers and agencies together, and everybody works together to resolve things. And so we're honored and pleased to have that relationship with all of the agencies. This is our production compound that I mentioned. This is the 9th Street Tunnel. We're right on top of it. The staging area for our floats is on 7th Street. The step off or the beginning of our parade is at 7th and Con. This is where we get all of our volunteers in. Just for a little fun fact, we have probably 1,800 volunteers for this parade. It's really big. It's lots of fun, but all in all, we have about 3,000 participants just alone in our parade, not to mention all of the wonderful spectators that we have along the parade route with us. So that is our assembly area. This is the telecast area that I was mentioning to you earlier. This is 7th Street, and this is 9th Street, archive steps. The bleachers that you see on the south are hard built. The bleachers you see on the north are portable bleachers. Mm-hmm. As you can also see, for our safety plan, at each one of the intersections that lead to our parade route, we have hard barriers. We're working with DPW on that. And MPD actually takes the lead on making sure they're deployed and positioned in the right places. So we have that in play.
What do you anticipate your crowd to be?
Well, we typically will draw a crowd throughout the, I would say a transient audience, about 150,000 people, just for us. Not to mention, you know,
The events, right?
the other events that are, you know, the people that are coming to Sakura Matsuri, you know, they have a lot longer transaction time than with us. You know, we have a 2-hour window. They watch the parade and then they go someplace else.
Mhm.
Typically, they go to their Emancipation Day parades for another parade, or they go to Matsuri to have a nice drink. So yeah, we have about that in a transient way. In our bleacher area, we have about maybe 7,000 seats. So it's not, we don't seat as many people as, you know, we could. We just have bleachers in those two areas, the telecast area and the West End.
That's great.
Mhm.
Awesome. Commissioners, do you have any questions regarding this, or do community members have any questions?
Nope.
Well, thank you so much.
I think this looks, I think this is always a great event, and always well coordinated as well. So I'd like to move that we send a letter of support for the 2023 National Cherry Blossom Festival Parade on Saturday, April 15th.
Seconded.
Okay. And all those in favor? Raise your hand. So 4 commissioners voting in favor of that. Awesome.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Linda. We appreciate you being here.
You have a wonderful evening, and thank you for having me.
Thank you very much.
Bye-bye.
We look forward to your event.
Thank you.
Next up, we have the 2023 Race for Hope DC. And do we have Deanne Martin with us?
Hi, yes, I'm right here. Thank you so much.
Hey, how are you?
Hello, I'm good. After Linda's presentation, I'm just really glad that I'm just presenting a 5K because mine's easy peasy compared to that. Oh my goodness. Would you like me to share my screen as well?
If you could, that would be great.
I will do that. Okay. All right, so I'm presenting the 26th annual Race for Hope DC. We have been in this same location for at least the last 15 years. It's the largest brain tumor community event in the nation, potentially the world. We just don't know if we're 100% sure about that. Over the years, we've raised $37 million for brain cancer research. This year, we are scheduled to be at Freedom Plaza on Sunday, May 7th. We are expecting 5,000 to 6,000 participants this year. Participation is up, so it could get up to 7,000, but I think we're going to land closer to that 6,000 number. We did make some changes to the event last year, which makes it have less of an impact on your streets. We moved all of our tents onto the plaza, so the only thing that's on the streets now is tables and stanchions that can get moved pretty quickly, and the running equipment. So in terms of getting the streets back open, it happens much faster now. And the majority of the event is on Freedom Plaza and on Pennsylvania Avenue between 14th and the start line, which is between 12th and 13th. Then the race, I'll scroll down to the course. It's the same course that a lot of these other events use, so you're probably quite familiar with it at this point. Goes up Pennsylvania, down 3rd, goes down Independence, does the turnaround, up 4th, over to D, back up 3rd, and then back to Pennsylvania. Everything ends where it starts, just on the opposite side of Pennsylvania Avenue. We do use Quiet Sweep for our trash and recycling pickup. We're also using GW Medical for our first aid, and they will have mobile units, bicycle units as well, and LifeStar for ambulances. And of course, we work with MPD for road closures, and they help coordinate DPW as well for the dump trucks at the busy intersections that we've been doing for the last handful of years. And let's see what else is. We work with Pacers on the event. They do a lot of the runs downtown, so they know what they're doing. And if you want to see the site map of sort of how things are laying out here, so everything, as you can see, as I said, is on Freedom Plaza outside of some tables for our water. And we have our survivor staging area, but that's just rope and stanchion that can be moved pretty quickly. And everything else is here and over in the Reagan Building Plaza over here on this corner. That's pretty much it. As I said, I'm a lot easier than Linda. So if anybody has any questions, let me know.
Thank you so much for that. Have you been in touch with the JW Marriott regarding the event? You
yeah,
have.
they know. They actually have a room block for our event as well. So they are aware of us. Yep.
Got it. Because I know that's always a potential challenge with them setting up on Freedom Plaza. But do you do that the day before, or do you?
Yes.
Do that?
Yeah. Luckily, we're able to get everything set up during the day on Saturday, and we don't start any of our announcements or anything until roughly 7:30, 7:45. So it's not that super early kind of noise that they have to deal with.
Got it. Sounds great. Another great event. We appreciate you bringing to DC and having in DC, and I'm going to say it's the world's largest. And
Thank
37
you. We'll
million
take it.
is amazing. Does Commissioner Rowe, do you have a question?
Maybe I missed what the hours of the event are.
Oh, sure. Yeah, registration opens at 7 a.m. Our opening ceremonies start around 8:40. The 5K start is at 9. Our closing ceremony is at 10:30, which means people are pretty much starting to clear the plaza by 11:15. And it's crazy. By noon, it's like a ghost town. So, yeah.
Got it.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Commissioner Schenkel, I move that we send a letter of support for the Race for Hope.
Thank you, Commissioner Rowe. Is there a second? I see Commissioner Strauss seconding. Okay. And all those in favor, please raise your hand. So 4 commissioners voting in favor. We will get you a letter off for that. Thank you very much.
Great. Thank you very much. We appreciate it every year having this time to talk to you guys. So
thank you.
Thank you. Have a good rest of your meeting.
You too. Bye-bye. And next on our agenda is the 39th Army 10 miler on Sunday, October 8th, 2023. And George Banker. Did I see George? Or is there somebody from the 39th?
I see a George Banker.
I miss George.
George? Hi, we can't hear you.
It looks like you're unmuted, but we cannot hear you, sir. We will let you figure that out a second. I can see George, but can't hear you. We will, do you want to try to log off and log back on? And we'll go on to the next item and come back to you. All right. We will come back there a second for George while he is figuring that out. Next, we'll move on to the ABRA alcoholic beverage licensing. And first up on the agenda is the Goat Room, 1010 Inc. at 1010 Mass Ave Northwest for a new retailer's Class C restaurant license. This is ABRA 123802. Is Mr. Barry on with us?
I saw him earlier and I do not see him now. I don't know if he had to sign off to do dinner at his existing restaurant. So not sure how we proceed without him.
Well, this matter is up. I believe the protest hearing is at the end of this month, the filing.
Yes, I think that it's due by March 27th for any protests. Do you want me to just speak on?
Sure, if you could.
Okay, so I actually am a resident. I'm 2C04. I am a resident at 1010 Mass. And as such, I have heard a number of concerns from my neighbors with regard to opening because of the hours of a Class C restaurant, which go until midnight, Sunday through Thursday, and 2 a.m. Friday and Saturday evenings. As a residential building, a number of the residents expressed concerns. I actually had a meeting with the restaurant owner, Mr. Manish, and his team, as well as members of our board and management of the building. And we are currently working on a settlement agreement to limit some of the hours, to talk about the summer garden, which is requested as part of this licensing request, and to talk about things like soundproofing and ventilation, and a number of the issues that have been expressed by neighbors. So as of this moment, I have sent a draft settlement agreement to Manish and to his team, and I think that what we are proposing to do is move forward with us as the ANC working with him to work on a settlement agreement. Did I say that correctly?
Sure, absolutely.
Yes.
Absolutely. That sounds great. So there is a settlement agreement that is in the works
Yes.
for this.
Yes.
And there is most likely the possibility that this would not be completed by the protest deadline.
Yes.
So I know that we would want, and they have, to my knowledge, they have not made any amendments to their license application. So we would probably want to file a letter of protest on the license.
Okay. And then we just proceed with the settlement agreement based out of that. That's my understanding.
That is correct. That is correct. Are there other, I guess, community concerns? Okay, I see two hands that are going up. I first have S. Towns.
Good evening, commissioners. Thank you. Just a clarifying question on Commissioner Rowe's process steps and perhaps your comment to her. If you are talking about a settlement agreement, that is something that the ANC Commission would do collectively. My understanding is if you were working on that, wouldn't necessarily need to do individual protests, but it sounds like if the settlement agreement won't be done until after the protest deadline, are we then still recommended to do individual protests? Let me know if you followed all that. I know it's almost 8 o'clock at night.
No, it's fine. It's fine. So you're questioning the process, I believe.
Yeah. And if we still, as members of 1010 or the community, would need to file individual protests as just to make sure that the concerns are addressed.
You could file a protest with 5 or more individuals that are impacted. I would never discourage someone or a group from filing a protest if they desired to do so. The commission has been concerned, and we have gotten a number of different emails about this location, so we know that there is some challenges, and it has been historic. We've had historic precedents in 2C. There, I'll get it out, right? This is actually water I'm drinking. No, that we do limit outdoor summer gardens near residential buildings because of the disruption that they can have. So I think it's Commissioner Rowe's intention that we would file a protest in order to work toward a settlement agreement. And I believe, if I'm correct in my understanding, that Commissioner Rowe has been engaging folks within 1010, the owners, et cetera, in developing the settlement agreement.
Yes, I am one of them.
Yeah. Okay,
but I just wanted to double check the process steps here, just in terms of order of operations, as this is new to me.
Yes, so I believe we're going to be filing a letter of protest. And George, I think you may have fixed your audio issue.
Can you hear me?
I can. We'll be right with you. We got you.
I'm not going to move.
Okay, don't move. The next hand that we have up is resident Abrams. or Abrams.
Hello, how's everyone doing this evening?
Good. How are you?
How's everyone doing this evening?
Very good. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. First of all, thank you, commissioners, for giving us all the information and being very informative and very transparent with everything. My question is, when the Goat Room came, signed on with us or purchased or leased, did they bring up any of the information about how they wanted this alcohol license? And are we protesting because now they're changing what they originally planned?
No. To my knowledge, they have not changed anything. Commissioner Rowe, could you, I don't know if you want to answer that.
When they first filed the placard for ABRA for the hours, that was part of what drew a lot of neighbor concerns because of the hours of keeping the restaurant open until 2 a.m. on Friday and Saturday evenings, and then until I believe it's midnight on the rest of the days of the week. And I received a number of concerns from people in the building about those hours and about the fact that they want to use a summer garden. Again, I've spoken to the owner of the restaurant. He's extremely amenable to making changes. I think they just applied for the classy restaurant, you know, with the understanding. I don't believe they're represented by counsel. I don't know if they have counsel on this call. I don't think so. But with the understanding that they were not going to be open those hours, but because of the concerns, we are working with them to try to mitigate the concerns in advance. And the reason to do that is that we have then an agreement in place so that if there are any complaints, any issues that happen down the line once the license has been issued, we have something in writing. That's my understanding of this. Is my very first one as a commissioner, so I think I've got it.
Yep. It sounds great. And I will say that protest is such a harsh term for what we are proposing here. It is a procedural process that we file a protest to the license, which basically pushes the parties into mediation in a formal process with ABRA. So this is the goal is to reach a settlement agreement and not interfere with the operation of the business. We understand that that space has been vacant for some time and that we really want to make sure that we are supportive of not only a new business going into 2C, but we want to make sure that there are clear parameters with the residents living right above that. I hope that answers the questions.
No, it does answer the question. I'm
Okay.
I'm at 1010 Maskin. I'm on the second level, so that's why I asked the question. So I appreciate the answers and the information.
Most definitely. Commissioner Rowe, would you like to make a motion regarding the Goat Room?
Yes, I would like to move that we send a letter of protest and begin the process of a settlement agreement with the Goat Room representatives.
Commissioner Strauss has seconded. Great. All those in favor, if you could raise your hand. And Thomas, you're off camera. So I have 4 of 4 commissioners voting in favor of sending a letter of protest. So we'll get that protest letter off and work toward that settlement. We'll jump backwards since we have George has come online with us for the 39th annual Army 10 miler on Sunday, October 8th.
Well, once again.
Yes, go ahead. Go ahead.
Okay. Thank all of the commissioners. I really appreciate the time. Out of the other, I'm probably the easiest one out of the other 2 events is that there's no structures set up once we come into the district. Primarily along our race route is from 14th, when we come into the ANCs, it's along Independence Avenue from 14th down to 7th and then back. We'll probably hit that area since we start and finish over at the Pentagon. And then we come in off the Whitehurst Freeway, and then we pick up Independence Avenue and go all the way down to 7th. And we loop around the FAA building. The runners will hit and come into the AC area about 9:15, but we have to be out of the district by 10:45. I coordinate with the 7 police jurisdictions, and there's 4 medical. All the medical providers that was mentioned earlier, we use some of the same ones in addition to having a medic and a medical spotter every half mile along the race route. And each one of those, they have a portable defibrillator with them. I'm probably not too well liked that morning because we will hold the runners to maintaining a 15-minute pace per mile. And if they don't do that, we turn them right at 14th and then the 14th and Independence, and we send them back towards the Pentagon. The last race we had, the heavy one was 2019, disqualified 400 people for moving too slow. That's to make sure that we maintain the time frame that we're supposed to have. We have a trash truck that trails the last runners throughout the entire race route to make sure that we have everything cleaned up. Coordinate with FAA and GSA around that 7th and Independence, since we circle their building and all the surrounding hotels. Contact all of them probably about 2 months in advance to make sure they know what everything is going on. And as the Cherry Blossom Festival, as they mentioned, we do a tabletop exercise as well with all the police and the medical providers. We do that in the month of September. And we just go through some scenarios and what if situations. And I'll be presenting to the mayor's task group. I'll be doing that next month. And basically, we're going to be we're using the same route that we have for the past 5 years.
Got it. And
there's no other.
You're in the district, you're in the ANC around 9 and out of the district by 10:45.
Yes.
Awesome. And how many runners do you expect?
We are expecting about 25,000 runners.
Oh, wow. That's great. Awesome. I'd like to move that we send a letter of support for the 39th Army 10 miler. Is there a second?
Sorry, seconded.
Commissioner Rowe is seconding. All those in favor, please raise your hand. Okay, 4 of 4 commissioners voting in favor of that. We'll get that off right away, Mr. Banker. Thank you very much.
Thank all of you very much.
Most definitely. Thank you.
Right.
You too.
All right. Bye.
Okay. Do we want to take our 2-minute break to grab water before we go back to the other ABRA applications, ABRA applications?
Sure, I'm happy to do that. And we will get the next one keyed up as we get ready. Okay. So we'll take a 2-minute recess, please.
Thank you.
My pleasure. Is Commissioner Strauss and Commissioner Lee back? Awesome.
And thank you for the break for my hand, everyone. That's part of it too. Is note taking. Appreciate that.
Awesome. We will now move forward with the next Abra license, Taco Bell Cantina at 808 7th Street Northwest, new retailers Class C restaurant. This is an Abra 123721. Attorney Lamont, are you here?
Hey, good evening, commissioners. This
Good
is Manal Mahmood with Malleus O'Brien Sandground on behalf of Taco Bell Cantina. It's fitting that it's Taco Tuesday. So this is going to be modeled after their other Taco Bell cantinas. And the hours currently are Sunday through Saturday, 7 a.m. to 1 a.m. And it has a capacity for 21 seats and 67 occupants. And the current model for Taco Bell cantinas is it's not a full bar, but rather they have ready-made frozen cocktails. And that's the model they'll be beginning with at this location as well.
That's great. And who doesn't like some frozen cocktails?
Right?
Just saying. Commissioners, do you have any questions regarding Taco Bell Cantina? And is just as a curiosity, is this just an add-on to like a Taco Bell? Is it the same kind of restaurant, or is it a different quality, a different style? Tell me, I don't know.
No, so essentially they call it Taco Bell with frozen margaritas. You know, there's you know, seating, but most of it is probably going to be, you know, a few tacos, a breakfast burrito, and a frozen margarita.
Got it. Okay. Awesome.
Quick question: is the building that it's in is not a residential building? Is that correct?
No, I believe it's not a residential, but I can confirm with you. It's taking over part of the space where the Irish pub used to be located, Fados.
So you have not received any concerns from neighbors in the building or anything?
I have not. I have not. But if anyone on the call has any concerns, we are happy to answer any questions.
Thank you.
Do any community members have any questions regarding this establishment? Then I would like to move we send a letter of support for Taco Cantina. Is there a second? There's a second by Commissioner Strauss. And all those in favor, please raise your hand. So 4 of 4 commissioners voting in favor of that. All right, we'll get that letter off. And you do not need a stipulated license?
No, we're hoping to open in September, so no stipulated license needed, but thank you very much.
Awesome, most definitely. Thank you. Good seeing
you.
you.
Have a great evening. Great to see you.
Good seeing you too. All right, let's move forward with, I'm sorry, we are withdrawing Clo Hospitality LLC, 815 7th Street Northwest. This applicant contacted us regarding support of their license and a stipulated license, but they had not yet filed the paperwork. So we will hear them at a later date. Moving forward to transportation and public space, Mizzo and More LLC at 701 9th Street Northwest, a new sidewalk cafe unenclosed. This is D.109873992. Is Mr. Abdul with us this evening? Or someone from that establishment? I do not see anybody with us this evening. We'll table this item. Next on our agenda is Glass House Coffee 3 at 1201 New York Avenue Northwest, new sidewalk cafe, unenclosed. This is D.109854777. Mr. Fleming, are you with us? No. Okay. Or anybody from the establishment? Okay. Then I would like to table this one and move forward. And our next item of business is planning, zoning, environment, and historic preservation. The first item is 1125 15th Street, a modification of consequence. This is BZA 20611. And is Lawrence with us?
Hi, everyone.
Hey, how are you?
All right, how are you?
I'm very well, thank you. Thanks for hanging in with us.
Absolutely, thank you. Is this a good time to pull up our presentation?
Please do.
All right, great. Hopefully everyone can see that. Again, my name is Lawrence Ferris. I'm with the law firm of Goulston Stores. We're land use counsel for this project, which is a BZ application we filed last year for 1125 15th Street Northwest. That's, as you see there, mid-block on 15th Street across from the Fannie Mae's headquarters building, just about a block and a half north of McPherson Square. This is an existing office building that dates from the 1970s, and the project will convert to residential with about 260 units. Here you see the existing building today right here across from the Fannie Mae building. Part of the building renovation will be to add balconies to the exterior walls to provide additional outdoor space throughout the building. And so our BZ application last year was for a special exception approval to add balconies at the rear of the building on the east side, opposite from 15th Street. We're not moving the rear building wall itself, it's staying where it is. We're just needed relief in order to put balconies there. So the modification we filed now incorporates updates that we've made to the design since the BZA granted their approval last year. The primary one is that we've revised our plan for the penthouse amenity space, which you see up on the screen. They approved on the left and the proposed revised design on the right. There's an existing mechanical penthouse up on the roof today, and a portion of which we're converting to amenity space for building residents. And we were originally proposing fairly substantial modifications to that existing structure, including an addition to it, but the cost for that simply became excessive. So we went back to the drawing board a bit and are now proposing a somewhat more streamlined approach that will still renovate and convert the penthouse for amenity space, but will largely leave the existing structure as is without any addition, like we were proposing before. So there were some other tweaks to the design, floor layouts and the like, that resulted in very minor shifts in our overall zoning metrics. The changes were really on the order of 1%, maybe slightly more. We lost 2 parking spaces, so we went from 123 parking spaces in the BZA approved plans to 121 that we're showing now. We ended up with a few more bicycle parking spaces. Here you'll see we are looking at doing some potential retail space on the ground floor. So we shifted that a little bit around as well. None of the adjustments that we made has any impact on the zoning relief that BZA approved for the rear yard special exception. So this application is really just about updating the BZA record to be consistent with what we're proposing now. So that's really our application in a nutshell. We're happy to answer any questions. I also have Jeff Lockwood from Hickok Cole, the project architect, on with me, as well as Duncan Slidell from Lincoln Property, the project developer. I will note that it ended up that the BZA is taking up our application at their public meeting tomorrow morning, which is obviously a lot quicker than we were expecting. So I did reach out to the BZA staff to let them know we were presenting to you all tonight. And I have it from staff that the BZA is going to leave the record open for you all to submit a letter if you are so inclined. But that pretty much sums up our application. Thank you for your time and happy to answer any questions.
I have a question for the balconies. How come it wasn't included in the original plan?
So
why did you decide to add them?
So the balconies were included in the plans. that we were approved by the BZA last year. We moved the balconies around a little bit, and there were some balconies that we were originally showing on the lower levels abutting this alley that we had to remove for safety concerns. They were at the second level. So we'll still have balconies on the higher units along that wall, but it was more just shifting them around. But yeah.
Yeah, we actually added 3 balconies to the rear so we're up 3 from where we were when we got approved originally.
Got it. So you are asking, explain to me in a nutshell what you're asking for support for. The modification of this penthouse unit?
Modification of the BZA approved plans, including the revised penthouse plan. Yeah.
And the revisions would be to basically take off it looks like a sliver of this mechanical area that was proposed on top.
Right. So this is an existing mechanical penthouse that's there today.
Yeah.
So this is the approved plan. We were planning on actually expanding it. We're going to trim it in some ways and expand it in others and do an addition and modify the structure overall. And now it just became far too expensive for that to be reasonable for the project. So we're going to keep the structure as is. That's the existing envelope. And we're still converting most of it to habitable space for penthouse amenity. But yeah, that just affects the overall roof layout and the existing structure remaining as is.
Got it. And you're on your proposed structure, there's this little dark area, black area that has lines in it to the left of your screen. Yeah. What is that?
So that's just a shade trellis, like a shade structure. Yeah.
Got it. Okay, terrific. And then on your next design, or the next page, are you asking for BZA changes here on usage of this, or this doesn't fall underneath that?
So we don't need relief. And to be clear, we don't need relief for any of this. It's just that once you go to the BZA and get your plans approved, the plans that you go and you file your building permit, those plans have to be consistent with your BZA plans. And so we've had to update the design over the last course of the year since the BZA approved. And so the primary thing we need the BZA's approval for is the rear yard relief. We already have that. We're not changing anything affecting that. But once we get that BZA approval, if we update the plans, depending on the extent of changes you make, sometimes you have to get a modification that's approved by the BZA.
Got it. Okay. These do not look like they are substantial changes to me. Would you agree with that?
Absolutely. These are very minor changes.
Minor changes, right. Okay. Commissioners, do you have any questions? Any other questions?
Nope.
Okay.
Other than whether a letter is needed by tomorrow morning?
No, and actually that's why I flagged that, because I knew that was far too fast and not fair to you all. So I did ask the BZA to leave the record open for another week. And we're happy to do anything we can to help you prepare the letter. Again, if you're gracious enough to provide one.
Thank you.
Yes, I would move that we send a letter of support for 1125 15th Street Northwest for the modification of consequence. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thomas is seconding. Okay, and all those in favor? Awesome. So Commissioner Strauss, was your hand up? I'm sorry. Oh, there you go. Okay, gotcha. So 4 of 4 commissioners voting in favor of that. Mr. Ferris, would you be willing to send us a short blurb letter?
Absolutely.
That would be helpful for us to address and sign in and send in for you.
Certainly, will do.
Awesome. Thank you very much.
Thank you all for your time. Have a good night.
I appreciate you.
Thank you.
You're quite welcome. Thank you. 1117 12th Street Northwest, 12th Street LLC, extension request for BZA, and this is BZA 18878E. Is Meredith with us this evening?
Hello, Commissioner. Good
Hey, how are
evening,
you?
Meredith Moldenhauer.
How are you?
Good, good. How's
Awesome.
everyone doing?
Very well, thank you.
So I can share my screen.
If you could, that would be excellent.
Okay. So this is a previously approved BZA case 18878 located at 1017 12th Street Northwest. We have a BZA hearing currently scheduled for April 5th. You can see the rendering here of the proposed existing townhouse building with the addition on top. This is the existing building as it is today. You can see it is kind of nestled in between existing high-rise office buildings. This application is located in the R4 D4R zone in downtown here. Kind of you can see again how it is a small lot nestled in between two large developments that have existed for many years. And so we went to the BZA and got approval for a 10-story office building with 2 levels below grade. The intent of the office building is to be the headquarters for a consulting firm specializing in biotech, healthcare, and IT consulting. This application was approved back in 2015. We obtained, variances from the FAR, rear yard, and parking. The case went to the DC Court of Appeals. That's kind of one of the reasons why you see this very long history. And so the abutting office building appealed this to the DC Court of Appeals. The DC Court of Appeals remanded it. The BZA then issued a revised order affirming and approving and addressing all of the concerns of the DC Court of Appeals. It was then vested and COVID occurred. We then got a COVID extension in 2021. The Board of Zoning Adjustment through the Zoning Commission issued a revised program which allowed for an emergency action to extend any orders that expired during the COVID period. That granted the application another 1-year extension in 2022. And that is why we are now here, kind of where we are today. We are asking for a 2-year extension under subtitle Y 705.2. We believe you comply with the requirements. We have served all the parties, including the ANC, who is just automatically a party to a case. There is no substantial changes to the material facts of the application. We believe there's substantially good evidence to request the extension. We've submitted extensive documentation indicating that there would be there's a challenge and inability to obtain financing due to economic and market conditions. As I indicated, this is an office building, and so in the current climate, obtaining office financing is extremely difficult, and that there's good cause shown based on the previous litigation and the delays that caused, and then COVID kind of creating additional challenges. So we are here tonight asking, you can see again kind of the rendering of the proposed building that is being designed and would be subject to the BZA order, asking the ANC to support a 2-year extension application. And I am available to answer any questions.
Got it. And so I'm assuming that because it directly abuts the other building, that's why you were in litigation.
We were asking for some. It does not directly abut the other building, but there are some. There's some aspects that it does. Yes, and on the side and in the rear. So there was going to be some at-risk windows that were going to be subject to be closed.
Got it. That's okay. Perfect. Got it.
Yes, it does. But sorry.
Yeah, it does. But okay, perfect. Awesome. And you're asking for a 2-year extension. Well, seems very logical to me. It sounds like you've been down a winding, hard road on this. Commissioners, do you have any other questions? Do any community members have any questions or concerns? Then is there a motion on the floor for this?
Second.
Oh, do you want to propose the motion?
So moves, yes.
So we will send we'll move to send a letter of support for 1017 12th Street and the extension request for the BZA. And
thank you very much.
For that,
I hope everybody has a great night. Thank you.
Good night.
Second. Okay.
All right, all those in favor? Okay, 4 of 4 voting in favor of that. Gotcha. Okay, now we're good. I appreciate that very much. Thank you.
Thank you
Ms.
all.
Mulhauser. Appreciate you. And next on our agenda is 1735 K Street Northwest. This is BZA 20863. And do I have Bradley Lockhart? There you
Yes,
are.
here I am.
How are you? Very well, thank you.
Doing well. Hopefully I can be brief, but thank you for your time on this. I'll pull up our presentation for this. If I can share screen. So, like many other people, and what we even talked about or heard Council Member Pinto talk about is revitalization of the downtown corridor. So we are doing a office to hybrid lodging and residential use of the building at 1735 K Street. Let me slide. Our project team, the ownership is made up of Bernstein Management Corporation, who's owned and invested in properties for 70 years. Urban Atlantic Development is where I'm at, acting as the developer, and our operator Placemaker, which, as I said, it would be a hybrid use where it could act as nightly stays, short-term stays like corporate stays, or longer-term stays. So a very flex use for that space. Our land use, and Danielle Busso is on from Placemaker. Our land use attorney is Lee Templin, who is also on, and our architect Lisa Medina is on to address if any questions come up within their scope. Just to give you a high-level view, if this is the location of the property along K Street, so it's right at that pretty busy intersection where Connecticut is, close location to the metro over there. For just general programming to give you context for this project, there's going to be a basement amenity space with a bike room. For the first floor, there's going to be a retail space that's set aside where we're still determining which retail user would work within that space. Ideally, something that would partner well with a hospitality or residential use. The rest, and these are still being refined, as you can see that they're boxes, but it's 106 units at this building is being programmed currently. And I'm going to turn it over. The specific relief that we are requesting is regarding the setback for the screen on the roof to accommodate the change in use from an office building to a residential hospitality building. So Lisa, can you talk through to the commissioners about the specific relief here?
Sure. Yeah, we are currently seeking relief for the screening that will be surrounding the future mechanical equipment that is located planned north of the existing penthouse, which is shaded in brown. So it's that screening that is right around the future mechanical equipment to the north, as well as the future generator that is located to the plan west of that same penthouse. So currently, as it is designed, the screening that is to the north of the penthouse is set back about 6 foot. It says 6'8" right there. Yeah, 6'8". The screening itself is 8 feet tall, and it's driven by the height of the mechanical equipment. We project, and when we were doing our due diligence, we suspect that the equipment, the highest would be about close to 6.5 feet. The same thing with the generator to the plant that is planned west of the penthouse. So the screening around the generator from the rear property line is set back about 3'6". You can see that dimension there that is right up against the backside of the building. And so this is essentially what we are going in for the BZA.
So
and where is the penthouse? Is it the gray area?
It's the shaded brown area. So that is the existing penthouse. So the area that's shaded in brown, that is the existing penthouse.
That says mechanical space, machine shop?
Correct. Yes.
Okay, gotcha. Oh, it's not an actual penthouse.
No.
Livable space. It's the mechanical space.
Correct. Yeah, it's
got
like a
it. Oh,
mechanical
gotcha.
penthouse. Yes.
I was trying to think, like, where are they going to put a livable space on this roof?
Right. Yeah, I can suspect that could get confusing.
Got it. Okay, got it. So you're really looking, because that fence is 8 foot high, it's gonna exceed the limit that you have for the setback, which is 6'5".
Correct.
Got
Because
it.
essentially it's 1-to-1 setback.
Yes.
So that side setback is 6'8". It's supposed to be 8 because the screening is 8 feet.
Yes.
But because of the clearances around the future mechanical equipment, that's the setback we have to be at. So that's the relief we're seeking.
Empty the dishwasher.
So here, here are a few different perspectives that, as Lisa explained, to put it in a nutshell, it's allowing a screen to be a few feet closer to the edge to allow for the change in use from office to residential. That, for the most part, are there any particular slides that you want to go? That's what it is in a nutshell. But do you have any specific questions that you'd like to cover? Go back to any slides.
I do not. Commissioners, do you have any issues? Okay. And have you already, is the conversion from office to this mixed use, that's already completed? Or like the conversion that, I mean, like the usage of the building from an office building to a residential housing mixed use, is that within the scope of this project?
No, the hospitality, and Lee can maybe speak to this, but those uses are a matter of right.
Matter of right, okay.
Downtown. So this is very specific to the setback.
Got it. Okay. Commissioners, do you have any concerns? I have no concerns with this at all. I think that it's reasonable for this. So
I will move that we send a letter of support for this setback relief. I said that correctly?
That is correct.
Second.
Seconded by Commissioner Strauss. All those in favor? So 4 of 4 commissioners voting in favor of that. We'll send that off for you, so we can get that letter filed with you. Do you know when you're going to be before?
Our public hearing is April 5th.
April. Okay, so
we give you a little bit more time.
Yeah, April 5th is a good day for a lot of people here. So awesome. Sounds great. That's awesome. Thank you so much for you and your team for being here tonight.
Thank you so much. You all have a good night.
Awesome.
Thank you.
I would like to jump back to move into our other business and discuss. We did not get the February 2023 minutes from that. I did distribute the December 2022 and January 2023 minutes. Are there any corrections or additions to those?
Yes, I sent back both of those sets of minutes last night with a couple of corrections. So those are ready now to be approved as revised. So I so move that we approve the revised minutes for December 2022 and January 2023.
All right, second.
Okay, and all those in favor? Awesome. 4 of 4 voting in favor of that. We've been having a little bit of challenges with our minutes and the timing of those minutes. So we'll figure that out.
Okay. And I actually don't think we approved the agenda because we had Council Member Pinto start. Do we need to do that as well?
Yes, we should. We should do that. We need to jump back in. Are there any additions or corrections to the agenda this evening? It seems so late, but I move that we approve the agenda this evening. All those in favor?
Yes.
Okay, 4 of 4.
I just figured we have to do it for our records.
Yes, that is correct. Commissioner Thomas, do you have a treasurer's report?
I do not at this moment.
Okay, no problem. And next on our agenda is petition to cancel DC contract CA 230795. And do we have Michael Edwards on with us?
Yes. Thank you.
Hi, Michael.
Basically, I just want to thank everybody signed on to the petition and let everybody know that the petition was presented to the council members, particularly Mendelson, White, and Pinto before the meeting. And I'd also like to thank Mr. Shankle for raising the issue very diplomatically. So that's all I've got. Thanks.
Oh, terrific. That's terrific. I saw that Council Member Pinto hinted to that earlier. And do you want to talk about this at all anymore, Michael?
No,
is that you feel okay with it?
No, I think we've thoroughly discussed it. I just hope that council takes it seriously. I mean, it's a win-win. If the contract gets canceled, I think it's a win-win for everybody.
Mm-hmm.
The people
Mr. Edwards, oh, sorry.
People in the shelter get housing at DHS and get their needs looked after. Pat Handy program goes back to the Pat Handy shelter. The people in the community feel a little safer. And even the developer, instead of making $30 million in 15 years, he can make $100 million in 5. So, I mean, it's a win-win for everybody, but that's all I've got. Thanks.
Okay, I have a quick question, and then I promise you, Ms. Brunson, we will let you speak. I have not been able to find what contract number you're referring to. And so that would be something that would be helpful to me. The number that you put in the petition that starts with a CA, what contract is that specifically?
So that's the in-lease agreement that on 10009 11th Street. I mean, I can send you a copy of it.
That would be great. I just didn't have it, and so I was not sure to which contract we are referring. But
sure,
Commissioner Schenkel, Kenyatta Brunson from N Street Village, which is running the swing space, she's on the phone. She's on the call this evening. Is it okay for her to speak now? She has her hand raised.
Sure, absolutely. Please, Kenyatta.
Good evening, everyone, council members, commissioners. Commissioner Schenkel, it's good to hear you again. I'm actually driving, so I cannot be on camera right now. I am Kenyatta Brunson. I am the president and CEO of N Street Village. When we moved to that location, I was the chief program officer and worked very closely with DHS to get that program up and running as a temporary location for the women that were originally housed at the Pat Handy Legacy Building on 5th Street. I would just like to ask, what exactly are the concerns of the women that are located in that building outside of janitorial issues, security issues? Because we as the social service provider are providing substantial services to the women in that location. And they are making significant strides in their lives every day to be able to move to permanent housing. So my concern really is, what is the basis of this petition to move 140 women out of a location?
Mr. Shankel, you want me to answer that? I'd be glad.
Sure.
Okay. So the issue doesn't have anything to do with the women. The issue is that the city told us that this was a temporary housing situation and that it wasn't. They've actually moved homeless people into the shelter on 5th Street. And all we're asking for is that they stand by their word. They fix up the shelter on 5th Street, move the Pat Handy program back into 5th Street where it belongs. And the way to do that is the first step to do that is to cancel the contract on 11th Street. It doesn't have anything to do with the people or personnel. It has to do with the city administration standing up and doing what they said they were going to do in the first place.
Thank you for that response, because I was quite concerned that this was targeted towards the women that were in the building. We have met with DHS on several occasions, and they had to move the men into our old location because the building that they were currently in was no longer being able to be utilized for those services. DHS and DGS have been working extremely close to be able to address the construction needs of this project. As you can imagine, the pandemic has really put a damper on them being able to move forward with the construction plans. The plan as it sits right now is for the men to move out of that location at the end of April, which typically is the end of hypothermia season. Sometimes we extend hypothermia season to the 15th of April. So the plan is that the men will be moved out of that location and moved to a new location, either Emory or Blair, that has been renovated for the men. Construction will happen at the 5th Street location based on the original scope of work that we worked with DGS on. And then prayerfully, because we want to move back to our location as well,
Absolutely.
We will be back in that location late summer 2024 is what the new timeline is. Mommy's coming, honey, mommy's coming. And so we are working very closely with them in that regard as well, with that timeline, ensuring that they too do keep to that timeline, because as you can imagine, it is very difficult for us to operate in that space because we had to decrease our capacity in an effort to be in that location and for COVID. So that is what the new timeline is. And I have asked DHS, in particular, the chief operating officer and the new administrator for single sites to be able to relay that message. We did have a community meeting a month and a half ago. I personally have committed to having those community meetings once a quarter so we can relay information as we receive it. And so people feel very much in the loop. And so that is what my continued commitment will be.
That is great.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I appreciate all of these concerns and that information. I have not had that relayed from DHS or OGA or OGS. Yeah, GGA. Yes, yeah.
There are a lot of acronyms involved here.
ABC, XYZ.
We do appreciate keeping the lines of communication open, and I do think that that's going to be critical as we move forward through this process. So thank you very much for responding to the concerns of the community. We do appreciate that.
Oh, absolutely. As I stated before, I are more than willing to come to board meeting for tenants to be able to explain how the entire ecosystem operates and what our commitment is as the social service provider. And we continue to relay the information that we receive from our government partners. So if you all are welcome to that, I'm more than happy to.
Thank you.
Thank you so very much.
We really appreciate it.
We appreciate you.
Thank you. And I must leave now because mommy duty calls. Everyone.
Yes, thank you for staying late past bedtime. I do appreciate that.
Understandable. Thank you, Ms. Brunson. Appreciate that. One. And thank you, Mr. Edwards, for bringing that forward and holding individuals accountable. Appreciate that. I would I know that we've been talking a while as commissioners. I would like to move. I would like for us to consider hiring an executive director for the ANC, and that person would be the business administrator for the ANC and help coordinate not only our meetings and agendas, but letter writing, et cetera. As you all know, this continues to be an escalating role that we have. I'd like to just put that out to you all to get your thoughts. And this would be an early discussion that we would reach out and put together a job description or a call for proposals, maybe. Go ahead, Commissioner Lee.
Do other I'm just not familiar with this, but it's certainly we do. This does take up some time. Is this done with other ANCs, and how many hours a week are we thinking of, and how much of a
I am probably do other ANCs do this? Yes. To my knowledge, and I could be wrong, I believe that all the ANCs in Ward 2, besides 2C, has an executive director associated with them. And I would guess that we would probably be securing somewhere between 20 and 25 hours of a person's
a month, right?
Per month. Yeah, per month. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Per month. Yeah. That's what I'm kind of guessing on that. Yeah. But my thought was that we would reach out to some of the other commissions that have executive directors, talk with the executive directors of those commissions to find out how that works in the commissioners, and then move forward with putting together, I guess, a request for proposals in order to do that. And I guess, oops, sorry. So go ahead.
I was just saying, I think that's a good idea, considering the number of letters I just took down that you and I have to get done in the next 2 weeks. It would be helpful to have someone to assist us with that and getting the agenda together, assisting all of the commissioners, but particularly in the logistical part of it.
Yes. So any other comments? I'd like to move that we begin the process of determining what an executive director would do for us, and then moving toward a search for an executive director.
Seconded.
And all those in favor? So 4 of 4 commissioners voting in favor of that. Okay, so I'll start reaching out to folks, and we'll pull together some discussion meetings and move from there.
Great.
Okay. Our next meeting is April the 11th at 6 p.m. I'm sorry. There's one other item of business that we have on the docket, and that is returning to a hybrid model. Commissioner Rowe brought this up to us, and I believe Commissioner Strauss has talked about this previously.
Yeah, I'll take her
with us.
To go back in person, you mean, with a video option for people to watch?
Yes.
What are we legally required to do?
I believe that we can stay hybrid through the end of this year.
Just hybrid? I mean, this is fully virtual, not hybrid.
Yeah, well, I mean, like, we can stay virtual prior
to the end of this year.
Prior to COVID, meetings had to be in person.
Right.
So this virtual item is or virtual option is it's something that's going to continue, a COVID era thing. It is going to stay, or I believe they're working toward having it stay as a hybrid model. But that is not yet, I don't think that's codified.
But does hybrid model mean we can still do all virtual, or does that mean we need to be in person?
There needs to be people in person at a meeting. Yes.
There does.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
But our guests can, I'm sorry, get back.
Beginning next meeting?
Oh, no, not next. I wouldn't say next meeting.
Next year.
Yeah, next year is the legislation, but I think that we're being, as the public health emergency ends at the end of this month, it is, I think, time for us to consider moving into some kind of a more in-person with a virtual option.
The virtual option, right? Our guests can be virtual, like people who are.
Yes. We can make the determination on how we want to handle that. Yes.
All right. Would it be? I know that I used to attend meetings at City Hall, but that's probably not centrally well located for everybody. Is the MLK Library open till 9 p.m. on weekends, on weekdays?
Yes, they are. They just went back to their 9 p.m. schedule.
Okay. Well, I love meeting virtually. I know that.
Yeah.
Having two kids makes it a lot easier to do it from home. But if to support the city, and if the city needs us to be in person, then or be semi-virtual anyway, or have it embark on the hybrid, then I'm happy to make the sacrifice. But let's not do it right away.
Right. Let's I think we need to do some exploration on what the capacity would be at the library for us. If there's equipment that I know that they're wired for this in some ways, but what would that look like? How would we be able to communicate with people? How are other ANCs doing it, et cetera? I think those are all things that we have to explore before we make a decision.
Michael, I think it'd be interesting to see at the start of each meeting, we just take a quick poll, of hands of people who are logging in virtually to see whether they'd be interested in seeing us in person. There may be zero interest, in which case
there may be zero interest.
Right. But it'd be interesting to see. I don't know, who would be, I'd be curious to know like who's dying to see me in person.
Yeah. Awesome. That's a great point. Awesome. Well, it's a question that we can also, we could potentially send out to our email lists and ask them, what that would look like. Okay. All right. Okay. So we'll gather some more information on that and return at our next meeting with that. Do I have a motion to adjourn our meeting?
Yes, you do. I move that we adjourn the meeting.
Fabulous. And I see that Thomas raised his hand as a second.
Our second.
Done.
I think we lost Becky.
We are adjourned.
Thank you all. Thank you, everybody who came. We really do appreciate hearing from everyone.
Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
Good night.
Becky's internet went out. She just texted.
Oh, I see.
Perfect timing. All right. Talk to you soon.
Have a good one.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.